Hello everyone, my greetings to one and all. This is the fifth session on demand analysis. In the previous session, you have learned about impact of changes in income on the demand for normal good. I am Poonam Vohra from Microeconomics Learning Center. This session focuses on the impact of changes in income of the consumer on the demand for inferior goods. Let us understand this concept with the help of tabular presentation as well as its diagrammatic presentation. Let's begin. Now you will understand the impact of changes in income on the inferior good. So let us understand the meaning of inferior good first. An inferior good is one whose demand tends to fall with increase in income and vice versa. For example, coarse cotton cloth or bajra flour. Let us understand the concept of inferior goods with the help of a tabular as well as a diagrammatic presentation. Coarse woolen scarf is taken as an example of inferior goods. In the tabular presentation, first column is about price of the scarf per unit given in rupees. Second column is demand of scarves when income is rupees 3000. When price of scarf is rupees 20 per unit, quantity demanded of scarves is 35 units. As price of scarf rises to 22, to 24 and then to 26 per unit, one finds that demand for scarves falls from 35 to 28 to 22 to 15 units. Now suppose income of the consumer rises to 4000. Then at price rupees 20 per scarf, quantity demanded of scarves falls from 35 to 28, from 28 to 21, from 22 to 15, from 15 to 8 units. One can notice that with rise in income, there has been fall in demand for the coarse woolen scarf. And now suppose income falls to 2000. With fall in income at price rupees 20 per scarf, quantity demanded rises to 42 units from 35 or from 28. At price rupees 22, quantity demanded rises from 28 or 21 to 36. Similarly, at price 24, quantity demanded of scarves rises from either 22 or 15 to 29 units. And at price 26, quantity demanded of scarves further rises from 15 or 8 to 22. So one can observe that with fall in income, demand for coarse woolen scarf rises. This can be shown diagrammatically too by first plotting the demand curve of scarves when income is 3000. That is, plotting these values. One gets a downward sloping demand curve. By plotting price and quantity demanded when income is rupees 4000, one gets a downward sloping demand curve, but demand curve shifts towards its left. And when income is rupees 2000, and by plotting these values, one gets a demand curve which is downward sloping, but it is towards the right of the original demand curve. Trying to say that with rise in income, demand curve for inferior goods shifts towards its left And with fall in income, demand curve for inferior goods shifts towards its right. One must also remember that any inferior good may not always be an inferior good. No good is either always normal or always inferior. It all depends upon the likings or dislikings of the individual with changes in income. Now assess yourself and identify the correct option out of the 4 options given for a statement. If income of the consumer rises, then option A, the consumer will reduce the consumption of toned milk. B, the consumer will increase savings. C, the demand for full cream milk remains unchanged. And D, there will be a downward movement of the demand curve. Please check your answer. The correct answer is option A. If income of the consumer rises, then the consumer will reduce the consumption of toned milk simply because toned milk is considered to be an inferior good, in the sense with increase in income, the liking for toned milk has declined and there is an increase in the liking for maybe full cream milk. And rest of the options are not correct. Now have a look at this question. You are required to fill in the blanks. The demand for normal good dash, while that of inferior good dash, when income of the consumer dash. Options are A, increase, decrease, increase. B, increase, increase, increase. C, decrease, decrease, decrease. And D, decrease, increase, increase. Now please check your answer. The correct answer is option A. The demand for normal good increases while that of inferior good decreases when income of the consumer increases, implying there exists positive relationship between income of the consumer and demand for normal goods, and negative relationship between income of the consumer and demand for inferior goods. Changes in tastes and preferences also affect demand for a commodity. If there is favorable change in the tastes and preferences of a consumer for a particular good, then there would be an increase in demand for such a commodity. But if there is unfavorable change in tastes and preferences of the consumer for a particular commodity, its demand would decrease. For example, if there is a particular type of trousers in fashion, its demand would increase even if its price rises. But if that particular trouser is not in fashion, then its demand would decrease even if the price of the commodity falls. I hope you have understood the concept of inferior goods and the impact of changes in income on the demand for inferior goods. With this, the session comes to an end. The next session would focus on market demand and factors affecting market demand. Till then, keep reading and keep practicing.